Are you tired of being tired for no good reason? You know what I'm talking about. You wake up already feeling behind. You have your green smoothie, your meditation app, your gratitude journal. You're doing everything the self-help gurus tell you to do, but you still feel like you're dragging yourself through quicksand most days. I spent a couple of years thinking something was wrong with me, that I was broken. Maybe I had chronic fatigue. Maybe I was drinking too much. Maybe I needed therapy. Maybe I was just one of those people who wasn't meant to have energy or motivation. But then I learned something that changed everything, and it's going to piss you off when you realize how simple it is. Your energy isn't missing. It's being stolen by your own brain. Every time you think that thing your ex said 5 years ago and you feel that familiar little sting, that's energy being used right now. Every time you start a new project and immediately think about all of the ways it could fail, also energy being diverted to keep old fears alive. You're literally funding your own limitation, like paying monthly rent on a house you don't even live in anymore. Most people think that healing means talking about their trauma until they feel better. And maybe you think that that's what I've been doing all these years. Maybe I have. But what if healing actually means stopping the energy leak so you can use that power for what you actually want? Research shows that our brains use the same neural pathways for imagined events as real ones. That's why when you think about biting into a lemon, you start salivating. Your brain doesn't know the difference between past and future, real and imagined. We know that, right? Okay, baseline, check. So if you're not consciously programming your future, your brain defaults to recycling the past over and over and over, using the same energy that could be creating something new. Most of us were never taught how to break this cycle. We were taught to get good grades, get a job, and figure it all out as we go. Nobody taught us how to, and I'm taking this quote from the interview because I had to write it down the moment he said it, hold a vision long enough for it to become real. Nobody taught us the difference between the problems that drain us and challenges that fuel us. And the result is that millions of smart, capable people are walking around feeling stuck and wondering why they can't seem to get the traction on the things that matter most to them. But what if you could redirect all of that leaked energy toward building something you actually want? What if you could stop being a victim in your own mental patterns and start being the architect of your life? Well, today our guest is going to help us do that. His name is Reg Malhotra. He's spent years studying why some people seem to have endless energy for their goals while others struggle to get out of their own way. Through his work at Neuromasters Academy, he's helped thousands of people identify exactly where their energy is going and take it back. So in this episode, you will learn the real reason you feel drained even when nothing bad is happening, and how to spot the energy thieves hiding in plain sight. Why most people stay stuck solving the same problems instead of the bigger ones that could actually change their lives. And a simple process for turning past emotional events into fuel instead of letting them drain your battery into the background. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up, or text the word morning to 33777.
Creators in the world, Steve Jobs, Picasso's, and Einstein, even modern day, the one thing they'll always tell you, they got abstract ideas. They come in the form, they're abstract, they are vague, they can seem vague, but they can have a meaning. Do we do anything about them? That some of the things we call intuition, inner tutor. So we're really big on the idea of the 3 minds. In terms of how to connect with them and how to leverage that, well, you have to train your unconscious mind. You have to repair the relationship between the 2 minds. If at the conscious level you keep saying, I want to be wealthier, I want to attract money, but then at the unconscious level you have negative emotions on people who have money and you judge them, the unconscious mind always wins.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
I love your life focus here, just helping people master their energy, transform. It's what we are all about. But as we were just discussing before this interview, you give people really actionable advice on how to do that. So I'm curious, what's your story that led you here?
Sure. So, like a lot of people, I had my share of adversities, in my case, growing up, and then later as well. And typically someone who's doing this kind of work and is actively out there helping, other people get a control of their life, there's always that story, things were not so good. I had a lot of questions about, who I am, why I'm here, why haven't things gone the way they should have for me? At some stage of the journey, I was also suicidal. So when you go through these experiences, you're kind of like always searching for the answers. And somewhere along the line, I did what anyone does: go out there, get a job, do the right thing. I also got married very young, and I became a dad really young. But even throughout that period, there was always somewhat of a void, because there was something unresolved from the past. And that void, I couldn't figure out what that was. And secondly, I didn't know what to do about it. And so eventually, when I was in business, I was looking to be a better leader, looking to communicate better, looking to acquire some soft skills. And that led me down the path of personal development, lots of different programs, seminars, and so forth. And I changed so much that I couldn't help myself but get this out to the world in my way.
I had a similar experience, just realizing once I started applying myself toward what I was understanding, what I was reading, which was almost impossible not to. When you really immerse yourself in new content, it's hard not to be inspired and make some different changes. But then after that, it's like I call it the growth glow. When you first start growing, you're like, wow. And then you realize, oh, this is going to take a lot more than I initially expected. I'm not going to change everything that I want to change within 6 months. This is kind of a lifelong journey. But you talk about energy as the fuel behind everything. How can someone tell if their energy is working for them or if it's actually silently holding them back?
Yeah, great question. I'm very big on the idea of energy. And when I say energy, I really mean that natural motivation, natural desire, that those inner feelings that propel us forward, not just physical energy, but the energy that is always circulating through our system or not enough of, right? So if the way I present this is effectively, if you are not feeling motivated, if you are not feeling dialed in, you see, most people are not dialed into who they are. They don't understand their values. They don't know where they need to focus. A lot of people have not been trained to hold an idea for long enough, a vision, a path, right? Human beings are goal-seeking mechanisms, whether we like it or not, right? There's something magical happens when we get up daily and we know that we're pursuing something, because that gives us what's called the rhythm of accomplishment. Like this amazing force gets behind you when you're getting those micro wins and you're getting progress, right? So when I say energy, or to your question before, what happens when people are lacking that energy? Well, they need to really sit down and figure out what their values are. I always go back to that. A lot of people say, I'm trying to find myself. You don't need to find yourself, because by the time you find yourself, you'll be changed, right? There's always a new version of you waiting. There are versions of you that you haven't met yet, but that's only possible if you remain on a path that is congruent to you. So the first thing is figure out what your core values are. Because even our biology supports that. The executive part of the brain supports it when you're on your values. When you get up, not other people's values, not other people's ideas of success, but what are your values? And if you're in the pursuit of those values, if you're living those values, actualizing those values, you have no choice but to shine.
I was just interviewing someone before this on why smart people keep dating the wrong person. And the energy behind that all came back to knowing your values. And so I have found understanding values is some of the most important work that you can do, because it's not just about creating a business or finding love. It's everything. It's how you align your life. I love what you said about this misguided focus on finding ourselves. I always say you want to find your essence, like really know what your core is, but then you create your life. That's what we're doing here. We get to make choices that bring in what we're really clear that we want. But you said something that I had to write down because I've been doing this work a long time. And the way you worded something so simple, most people haven't been trained on holding an idea for long enough. Help us then, retrain us.
Yeah. So if you look at how we are conditioned or how we go through the system, the schooling and everything else, sure, there is some emphasis on, what do you want to do when you grow up? I mean, you look at that, that's a very common question. What do you want to do when you grow up, right? Or what job do you want to do? What work? There's a lot of emphasis on that. But if you were trained to consistently, let's say in high school years, consistently figure out our values, consistently remain dialed in, right, to what energizes us. It's not hard to figure out what energizes you. Because you can go hours and hours and hours and like there is no time, right? These are the ideas, if they're promoted enough, and then if people are trained to consider a longer term vision of who they can become, I think the better question is, what problems do you want to solve? What problems are you motivated to solve? I think that would be a fabulous question at school. I've always said that to my sons. Before they start saying, I said, no, hang on. If you had a magic wand, if you had a realistic magic wand, what problems would you get so involved in solving? This is not even about being an entrepreneur or not. What problem do you want to solve? That allows you to hold a vision. If you look at organizations, they talk about vision. Vision is how the world will be different as a result of your existence. Why don't we bring that to an individual? How will the world be different as a result of your existence? Now you start to get a vision and you reverse engineer, and then you hold it for long enough. Nowadays, especially, Melissa, look at TikTok. It's like 30-second video. Now we've been conditioned to have small doses of everything. If you don't read, if you don't do things for long enough, the old 10,000 hours rule. So it's that same idea. We need to be trained. So you need to decide who or what problem you want to solve, or how do you see yourself affecting others, for example, or a problem that exists in the world. Then there's a lot of techniques, visualization techniques, where you can install that into your subconscious. And I use this term. You can install future memories in the now.
Tell me.
That's part of what we have people do, because the brain does not know we all know the brain does not know the difference between real and imagine. We all know that. It's pretty easy. Go test it out. Go imagine sucking on a sour lemon, right? You'll start salivating. It's not there. So the brain doesn't know the difference in real and imagine, and the brain does not know the difference in future and past. So if you've not contemplated your future for long enough, if you've not held a vision of yourself in the future, where do you think the brain goes?
The past.
For everything. And unfortunately, by design, we have what's called a negativity bias, because the brains exist for survival. So when you're trying to do something new, when you're trying to say something or be something or take an action, your brain is looking for references from the past. This is very basic science. It's looking for pictures, sounds, and feelings, visuals, auditories, and kinesthetics from the past to determine what kind of energy it produces inside of you. Now that goes back to the point of energy. And why, going back to your earlier question, why people lack energy, a lot of times is because these pictures are held from the past. And if they're not positive, that's sucking energy out of you. Mana, it's the life source energy. It's not available. You need a lot of energy to create the future.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Men today face a ton of pressure to perform, to provide, to keep it all together. So it's no wonder that 6 million men in the US suffer from depression every year, and it's often undiagnosed. We need to talk about this because the stigma around men's mental health is literally killing people. Real strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about opening up about what you're dealing with and doing something about it. If you're feeling the weight of the world, talk to someone. A friend, a loved one, a therapist. There is no shame in getting help. Therapy isn't just for crisis moments. It's for learning better coping skills, setting boundaries, becoming the best version of yourself. It helps you show up better for everyone in your life. BetterHelp has over 35,000 therapists, and they've served more than 5 million people globally. Their app has a 4.9 out of 5 rating based on over 1.7 million client reviews, and that tells you something. You can start a session with a click of a button. It fits into your busy life, and if you don't click with your therapist, switch at any time. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Men today face a ton of pressure to perform, to provide, to keep it all together. So it's no wonder that 6 million men in the US suffer from depression every year, and it's often undiagnosed. We need to talk about this because the stigma around men's mental health is literally killing people. Real strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about opening up about what you're dealing with and doing something about it. If you're feeling the weight of the world, talk to someone. A friend, a loved one, a therapist. There is no shame in getting help. Therapy isn't just for crisis moments. It's for learning better coping skills, setting boundaries, becoming the best version of yourself. It helps you show up better for everyone in your life. BetterHelp has over 35,000 therapists, and they've served more than 5 million people globally. Their app has a 4.9 out of 5 rating based on over 1.7 million client reviews, and that tells you something. You can start a session with a click of a button. It fits into your busy life, and if you don't click with your therapist, switch at any time. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. I have become really in tune with how my own thoughts steal my energy or boost it. And it's always the really simple things for me. I've become pretty good at holding a long-term vision. I always complete the goals that I say I'm going to do, which is I'm really proud of saying, because 15 years ago, I actually identified with my words at the time, maybe I'm too ADHD to complete anything anymore. And I really started challenging that identity. I'm very conscious of what words I identify with. I'm actually trying to not identify with really anything. I just said on my last episode, I'm even playing with this idea of not saying I believe things, just saying I think things. What does that shift for me? Am I more fluidly able to grow? But I've noticed with the little things, it's like those days where I'm like, I just don't want to get up and do this task, or this task feels too big. Maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I won't do anything. Maybe I'll scroll on my phone. And I am acutely aware now, these thoughts are draining me. And so I have to sit there. I'll sit up and I'll visualize. It's going to feel so good when I bust this out in 1 hour and then tell myself, see, what were you afraid of? It feels so good to be done with it. It's not as hard as it seems to be. And so I'll just get into that mindset of myself completing it. And I'm always able to get up and go. And I do still tune in. I like to work with my energy. Like, it's my luteal phase. I'm a little lighter on myself this week. But as far as these little things, I'm not going to emotionally talk myself out of the things I want to create in my life.
In a way, life is all about systems. If you look at great organizations, there's metaphors always there. Look at what makes organizations great. Which companies do well? There's one common thing in all of them. They are not relying on their own motivation, the company, or whether they feel like it or not, or whether it's right or wrong at the time. What they're looking is they put good systems. So the systems ensures that the company, the people, the processes work. I mean, you look at, not the best example, but it is an organization that succeeded, McDonald's. McDonald's is not a company, it's a system. right? Now let's bring this down, or look at big other organizations like Apple. Everything is a system, because the system ensures that even if people don't feel like doing something, it gets done, right? Let's bring this back to an individual level. There's a couple of ways to think about it. If those little tasks you want to do are super important to you, you know that if you don't do them, things will go backwards, then I would say bring in systems thinking. What can you put in place that ensures you do it? And I like what you said earlier about, I love what you say. It's very neurolinguistics in its approach. Whenever you think of doing something, your brain will run a picture of the actual task, the doing of the task. It's a very small change you need to make. First, consider an image and the associated feeling of the consequences of completing the task. And then I love what you said. It'll be so good when it's done, that little voice. And so mechanically, you can add these chain of steps in your mind so that a very good example is if you had good experiences in the gym, for those who work out, if you ask them, they felt incredible after a workout. So that resides in the nervous system. It's there. If you go back to right back to the time, you were at the gym and you felt amazing afterwards. Step into your body, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel those feelings all over again. Your body doesn't know the difference, drill and imagine. It would produce them to a degree, right? So if you have to go to the gym and you're feeling not like it, all you have to do is what you said earlier. You said completing the task. I would add that the word consequence of completing the task. Sit in that energy, and then all you need to do is take the first step, right? But we get stuck in the visuals and the feelings associated with the process, the task itself. So you kind of have to play a little games with yourself and hack this. These are all hacks.
Life hacks, my favorite. Yeah, I know we get in our own way so often with all of these little things. I really wish people would understand how powerful their mind is. Just in A Course in Miracles says that we're all basically too lenient with our thoughts. We're creating all the time. My keynote was around how so many of us in the self-development world think that because we can create our reality, that we can put it on pause. Like, oh, I'll manifest on Mondays. But the truth is you're always creating, even when you're creating unconsciously. And so we really only have a choice of if we're creating consciously or unconsciously. And unconsciously, we're creating by our programming. And that brings me to something you talk about, significant emotional events. Those are the things that are often writing our programming. So yeah, we might get in our way of like, I don't feel like doing this task, but there's something deeper there too that might be at play with all of it, but definitely with most of it, where it's like, oh, why do I feel like I don't deserve love? Why do I feel like men are evil? Why do I feel like I'm not the type of person that can handle success? So when we're dealing with these significant emotional events, what do we need to know about them, and how do we consciously shift that energy?
Yeah, significant emotional events is something very powerful when you really understand it. We also call them SEEs. And through my work with, it's not even like this is based on just a concept. Like I've had the privilege, if you will, to work directly with thousands of people now, and from all walks of life, typically people beyond 40. And I noticed a trend that these significant emotional events, I have a very strong opinion on it now. Initially, it was like, yeah, significant emotional events affect our life, and we got to, everybody talks about it, go and resolve it, what happened in the past, have no emotion on it. I realized over the last many years that everything you are doing today or not doing today, everything you are holding to be the truth or not the truth, has a direct connection with significant emotional events. Now, these are events that are it's not like a telemarketer calling you and you're getting a little bit pissed off. Like, these are events where you generally felt a cocktail of emotions. Some of the top negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame. They're the top 6, right? You have an event where you felt anger and fear at a more than basic level. How do you know that? You know how people talk about something happened in the past, and you can see when they're talking, they're emotionally associated while they're talking about something happened 16 years ago. The event is fully alive. And that's where the whole idea of energy cube comes from. You need energy, mana, your life force energy to keep the event alive. It's alive. That's why you're feeling sad even now. You're in tears. So these significant emotional events, that all of that energy, we need to create the future. Sure, they're part of the fabric of who you are. Sure, you have a meaning from it. But let's get technical about it. It takes a lot of energy to keep them alive. I had an event when I was little and this house down the street burned down. Imagine a little boy looking at this big explosion, fire, could even hear screaming. And I put myself inside a little blanket. Do you know, I think I spoke about that event for 20 plus years. And I remember doing the work to disconnect the emotion from the event so I can look at it like a movie, like just a little image. It's still there. But if I consistently have to feel it in my body, then that's dictating a lot of my current life, what decisions I make, what I don't make. And that's what that energy cube concept that you may have looked at is all about. I've tried to explain it metaphorically, and I can tell you 99% of people that we've spoken with have connected with that idea. We just got to make it simple for people to understand. You need that energy for the future. You want to create, like you said, we are creators. You want to create a family, you want to create a business, you want to create joy, you want to create experiences. These are acts of creation, and they require your life force energy. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah. And really, when we have a visual to go with things, people think it's silly sometimes, but I'm like, all of your limiting beliefs are visuals. That's why they're so strong. Just override them. And sometimes I feel like we have this resistance, or some of us do, a resistance towards our growth. It's like we're holding onto our patterns because they're keeping us safe in some way.
Yeah, and that's highly unconscious though. Like it's very hard for people to comprehend that at a conscious level. That's why any work that is done at the subconscious level is good work. Because a lot of that is stored. And sometimes we don't even know what to look for. Now, we have a concept called not limiting beliefs. We call it limiting decisions. So the premise is anytime a significant emotional event occurs, at some level, either by you consciously saying it or due to the emotions at the unconscious level, you made a decision. You know, when I was young, I auditioned for singing. Terrible decision. I wasn't very good at it. But I was one of those kids, just go and try it. And I didn't even know how to hold the microphone properly. And in those days, you know, those hand microphones, you don't hold it like that. You kind of hold it to the chin. And the speakers were screeching and a whole lot of people laughed. And it was a significant emotional event for me. I know all my significant emotional events, right? Because I did this work, right? I knew I felt anger then, I felt sadness, and I felt shame. Incredible amounts. Then I looked back. From that point onwards, I was never seen on stage. I never took part in drama or plays or whatever have you, debating, which used to be things I used to like. And I tracked that for 15 years. I was not seen in any public arenas, fronts of groups of people. I did make a limiting decision right at that point that either I can't be seen or I can't present myself properly. And it wasn't conscious to me. But when I disconnected all those emotions, so I can look at that event right now in my visual. I'm looking at Reg right there on the stage. I'm looking at people laughing, not feeling anything in my body. Zilch, none. The moment I disconnected that, well, can you believe my life's work is on the stage? How many more limiting decisions? Think about with money. If you saw your mom and dad fight and you felt emotions, that significant emotional event is dictating today what you feel about money. Let's not even use the word believe. What you truly feel about money. Do you allow it in? Do you feel it's never enough? Do you get negative? Well, money does lead to emotions in most people. Anyway, I went a little bit extra there, but SEEs is probably one of the most powerful things that one can learn about and learn about what to do about them. It's incredible.
I know my significant emotional events also. And it's been interesting though, even as I grow, sometimes I think I've moved through it and then it'll come up in a whole different area of my life that I haven't focused on. And so I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting it to come through in relationships. I thought it was only money or whatever it is. And so I'm curious because I know you talk about the 3 minds and the 4 bodies. How do you work with those? What are they, and where do you start when you identify some of these things?
Well, you really have read the book. Well done. Okay, so the 3 minds and 4 bodies, you know, it actually, these ideas come from a lot of ancient studies. There was different ways of representing the same ideas. In fact, I would argue, if you look closely, there is a reference indirectly in the Bible as well, and a lot of other. And really, we're talking about intelligence. So I'll start with the statement: anything you can conceive you are more than that. You're more than that. You're not hand. You don't say, I am hand. You say, I have a hand, right? But people have these things that linguistically, this is where the linguistic part comes up important. Linguistically, you are not, when people say, I'm angry. No, you're not angry. You're Melissa. Think about the impact of these things. You're not angry. You experienced a negative state. Maybe it's an aggressive one. So anything we can conceive we are more than that. Now that allows us to think about mind, body, spirit, all these things that people speak about. In reality, we have different intelligences available to us. I'm going to decide for 2 seconds. Here's what I'm going to say to Melissa next. Okay? That was just okay. I consciously decided that. While I'm speaking with you, while I'm looking at you, while I'm not even consciously contemplating what the next words out of my mouth were, I am actually accessing the other intelligence, which is the subconscious. So it's just not conscious, but it's still intelligence. I can access pictures, sounds, feelings from the past. I can see pictures of me having the last podcast I'm running it right now while I'm speaking with you. So let's make it simple. It's nothing spooky, right? We all know subconscious is where a data are stored. It's there to serve us. It's there to make things easier, automated. You pick up a green smoothie for 21 days, 30 days, 60 days, whichever, Harvard University says 60, someone says something else. But the point is, you do it enough, then the mind has enough pictures of it so that you don't have to consciously think about it. It'll just happen. Your hand will go to the fridge at 10 o'clock because that's what you do. So that's one way to look at subconscious. And then there is the third intelligence that we refer to as the higher conscious mind. And that's collection of all your experiences, information. I mean, I'm not going to go into there is a whole woo-woo side of it. I'm not sure, we probably will talk about it another time. But if I kept it practical, there is further information that comes to you. And it doesn't necessarily come from your conscious thinking mind, which goes to sleep at night. Your unconscious, your subconscious is awake 24/7, always trying to process information. Then there is a third intelligent, third mind. We call it higher conscious mind. Some people call it a super mind. Some people call it higher self. If you look at all great, creators in the world, Steve Jobs, Picasso's, and Einstein, even modern day, the one thing they'll always tell you, they got abstract ideas, which did not make sense. They come in the form, they're abstract, they are vague, they can seem vague, but they can have a meaning. Do we do anything about them? Like that some of the things we call intuition, inner tutor. So we're really, really big on the idea of the 3 minds. In terms of how to connect with them and how to leverage that, well, you have to train your unconscious mind. You have to repair the relationship between the 2 minds. If at the conscious level you keep saying, I want to be wealthier, I want to attract money, but then at the unconscious level you have negative emotions on people who have money and you judge them, the unconscious mind always wins. And then there are some semi-spiritual processes in which you can improve your connection, your relationship with your higher mind. We teach that as part of ancient Hawaiian Huna here.
Mm-hmm. I am so excited that you used that anger example and you said you're experiencing a negative emotional state. I really started trying to rewire my habit of making sure I was very intentional about what I identified with. I am blank. What comes after that? Only things that that I'm proud of being. See how my life shifts. And so with emotion, I would say instead, I'm experiencing anger. But then I took that another level. And so this is what it excited me when you said that, is that I started to ask myself, like, what if I had no word for anger? How would I describe that? Or if I was feeling shame about something, what if I had no word for shame? What is this? And when I took it to that level, it often lost its power because I didn't have to cling to this idea that I already had around what angry was or what shameful was. Instead, I could just tune into the body, which helped me to process it more somatically instead of clinging to it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. That's really good work you've done. And like we discussed earlier, it's equally possible to say, from an NLP perspective, neuro-linguistic perspective, we only talk about things in states. I'm in a negative state. Simple. There are only two broad categories of states. One is resourceful, means in this state, you can make decisions, you can manage things, you can manage the conversation, and you have unresourceful states. Now, try and ever go to the supermarket and when you're hungry and angry.
No.
You buy 10 times more than you need because you're in that state now. So I think you're right. Just for those listening, this is very good advice from you. When you're experiencing, it takes a little practice, but when you're in that state, starting by saying, I'm in this state. It's quantum in its nature, actually, observation. Even saying I am feeling anger in itself takes more than 50% of the power of the anger away. It's the act of observing something changes the observed.
You mention in your book that we often get stuck solving low complexity problems. What does that mean? And what's an example of a high complexity question that can change it?
Oh my God, I love this question. I love this question. Yeah, so let's think that we as human beings are problem-solving machines, right? That's really what we do. Doesn't matter what you can have $150 million, or you can have, the best business, or you can have the best love of your life. You still are engaged actively in the process of solving problems. And problem seems to have a very negative meaning to it because, we go up through school, maths problems. But if you even replace the word, problem is, is these little challenges that we have to solve. So what I've found through our work with people is that a lot of people could be the age of 40, 50, 60, 70, and they are still worried about what other people think of them or what that person will say if they tried this new thing. To me, one day it occurred to me, sure, this can happen to anybody. But then I see other things in their language and I figure out this person is really very busy solving lower complexity. Maybe for them it's not. Maybe for them it's big. But remember, it takes an equal amount of energy to solve what I found is a higher complexity problem as a lower complexity one. So if you're worried about what other people think of you, if you're worried all the time about food, or if you're worried about what your neighbors are doing, if you're worried about how bad these people from this culture, this religion, this clothing are, you still have a lot of emotion on it, a lot of energy. And you are solving actively those problems. You're getting busy with that stuff because, going back to your very first question, you have not dialed into who you are. You have not dialed into your vision. You have not decided where you're going. I'm generalizing here. So you're busy with this lower complexity stuff. Now imagine if you took that intensity, that energy, that thought processes to higher complexity problems like, what's your purposeful work? How do you strengthen and expand the nature of your intimate relationship? I call it a higher complexity problem. Because arguing with your partner, whether they're right or wrong, whether they did this, to me, that's a lower complexity problem. At what stage do you move beyond that and say, honey, we're going to do this together? You know what I'm saying? I've realized through my whole life, there was a point, I've been married for 21 years, Melissa, and like every couple, we went through our, ups and downs. And I remember this point came in where I said to myself, I have never personally, closely seen a successful model of a relationship. Not once. It's like everyone is in hell of some type, right? I'm like, that defeats the whole purpose. And so we had this amazing conversation. I said, you know what? We need to attach a bigger why. Bigger why is that we want to explore our relationship, see how far we can take it. see how much more we can learn about each other, see what parts of you I haven't met yet, and we can be a model of relationship for others. When we connected that, Melissa, it suddenly became a higher complexity matter that we've been actively engaged in even till this day. Or we can worry about whether you're right, I'm right. So higher complexity problems are even deciding, for example, what kind of work will fulfill you is a higher complexity problem than a problem, what kind of job will get you money now. It could be higher complexity for this person because they didn't follow their values. Does that make sense? I've sort of tried to put it in that frame. My goal, our work, my team, our company, our vision, we are always wanting people. We're not putting wool over people's eyes. Don't think you're going to do this personal development and life will be hunky-dory. No, you are only getting prepared to solve higher problems, which have higher rewards, including sometimes higher risks. So the results are more game-changing. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. We all have flesh and bones. We all have 24 hours a day. One guy is trying to solve problems at an absolutely global level, and one person is still worrying about.
It reminds me of a question that I often use just to refocus myself in business. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And that's so critical for my work because it's so easy for us to get caught up in these little things that don't ultimately move the needle. Like, oh gosh, the Instagram caption was wrong. Or it's like, what if you could do this without Instagram at all? But even broadening that to other areas of your life, like your relationship. Hey, my partner and I keep getting in the same type of argument. Instead of doubling down on why you're right this time, how do you step back and see why this pattern exists and how you can communicate or improve yourself to diminish it?
That's precisely what you're doing. You just didn't call it that. You're trying to find a higher complexity problem so that the lower complexity problems either disappear or are not so much of an agitation for you. One example that comes to mind is, and this is how this theory came through to me. Many, many years ago, we were literally having debate at home every day about what's going to be for dinner. It takes a lot of energy. One person wants to eat this. And I remember I said, instead of trying to solve that every day, why don't we just create a system for the week? That's a higher complexity problem. That will also require energy. Hey, on Wednesdays, we'll go out. On Thursdays, we'll get take out. On Friday and Saturday, we'll do this healthy meal. Doesn't matter. It is possible you may deviate on that, but it's a better problem to solve. Makes sense? So you're not every day getting stuck. And I looked at a lot of metaphors like that in my life. I'm like, wow, I just want to be engaged in solving high complexity problems.
Will you send me your meal plan? I've been trying to solve this for years. I keep starting. It reminds me of something else you talk about, though. You say that freedom without clarity is dangerous. And I've said this for so long. There was a brief period that I was vegan, and the biggest benefit of it was that I healed my tendency to be indecisive ordering on menus because I just scroll down for the one thing I could eat on the menu. And then all of a sudden I went back to meat and I was like, okay, I've got too many options now. So I have the ones that rotate in my head. But that's also one of the ways of using that question of what's the one thing they can do that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. You need some sort of clarity in order to find that answer. As we talked about in the beginning, maybe that's your values. Maybe it's knowing exactly what you're working toward in your business. Maybe it's knowing what problem you're trying to solve, which gives you the flexibility to kind of pivot when you realize the way you're working toward isn't working for you. But all of these are these guiding points. What other guiding points do you help people access to have that clarity to create the freedom they want instead of just freedom of indecision?
Yeah, I gotcha. It's about having a framework. In fact, if you like, after this recording, I will get our team to send you the framework to look at any low complexity problems. It's about four questions, and it will automatically take you to a higher complexity problem. We'll send you a PDF or something if you want to share it with your listeners, absolutely fine. So the answer is, some people believe in guesswork, right? In life, you look at it, things will work out, or I'll get this lottery, or I'll figure something out, or something will come to me. Sure, guessworks have a role to play, especially if you use your intuition. Some people believe in hard work, right? Oh, if I put in more time, more effort, if I keep trying, right, then it'll work out. Doesn't always work out for a lot of people. What you're referring to as I'm listening to it is frameworks. So very, very good to have. This is slightly off point in a way, but I wanted to bring that in. Have a framework for your communication. Have a framework for your thinking. That's one of the things I'm very passionate about. We help people, we give them a framework on how to chunk up. So if you're in a low complexity problem, you chunk up at a higher level before you chunk down only as quickly as you can maintain agreement. So if you have these frameworks, and so for this complexity issue, I'd be more than happy to share with you a framework that I came up with. It's 4 to 5 questions, and it'll almost always land you at a better, higher complexity problem. Would that help?
Oh, definitely. I am all about systems. There's still areas of my life that I'm trying to bring them in, but I've really got them in some other ones. But James Clear's quote of, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. It just hits, right? And so, yes, I would love your framework.
It's so true. And we apply that in business, but I just think it just transfer that over to the individual.
Yeah.
If we looked at the best organizations or the best countries or the best bigger entities, and what are the key principles they apply, and this is what I meant, like if we train people very young on how to apply frameworks and thinking system, then you take an emotion out of a lot of things. Because if we only did things based on our feelings are important, then you're going to find yourself stuck eventually.
In case you haven't heard, it's officially in Abercrombie summer. The A&F Vacation Shop has everything on your packing mood board. I desperately need their new one piece, the A&F Marina. It's strapless, so flattering, and paired with denim shorts will be my go-to beach outfit this summer. Finally, your suitcase isn't complete without finding that dress. You know, the one for the photo shoot. Abercrombie's boho dresses have that perfect beachy, romantic look. Make it an Abercrombie summer. Shop their newest arrivals in-store, online, and in the app.
With a Venmo debit card, you can Venmo more than just your friends. You can use your balance in so many ways. You can Venmo everything. Need gas? You can Venmo this. How about snacks? You can Venmo that. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit Venmo.me/debit to learn more.
You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo.
The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
My 4-year-old, I love the way his brain works, but it's fun because I feel like it's the coolest experiment raising a child and just seeing with the things that I know, how can I reword things to change the way he thinks a little bit? And one of the ways that just is reminiscent of what you're saying, starting with people young and getting them to change the way they're thinking. When he freaks out about something, I always get really excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, a problem to solve. Let's get creative. Let's think of all the ways we can solve this. You go first. And then we'll go back and forth, and it always changes his energy. And it's so funny because one day I was frustrated about something and I was like, why can I so clearly do that with Brave, my little one? Do it with myself. And so I just got to myself and I said, so exciting, a problem to solve. And I got all cheesy with it. And it totally shifted my state.
That's amazing. There are 3 specific concepts that come out of the field that I'm engaged in. One is reframing. That's pretty much simple. You gave the same thing a different meaning. The second is redirecting focus or influencing your own state. If a child's screaming at you, you can redirect their focus. Hey, what was so good about the last time you did it? So their brain has to go and get that picture. And the third thing you've done here is pattern interrupt. All 3 were in case when you do that with a child. It's very powerful with children. Very powerful because you can redirect their focus. By you getting into the excited state, and you like, at first there'll be confusion. There's this story of this kid who would always go to the supermarket aisle and always cry, I want candy. screamed the place down. It's like he figured out if he does that it embarrasses mom and she's going to buy it. And she did. One day she got fed up with it. And he would lay on the floor on his back, little 2 or 3-year-old, 4-year-old. One day she left the cart. She laid on the ground on her back in the middle of the supermarket aisle and started saying, "No, I'm not getting you the candy." He paused. The kids just suddenly pause when they go in shock. From a technical neuro-linguistics, neuroscience perspective, that image of his mom doing that got connected to his current system of producing that behavior. So he no longer had that intensity. Because who wants to see their mom doing that on the floor? It's kind of what you're doing in your own way, slightly different there.
I love that story because I do that exact same thing. Not out in public, but I do it here with my 2-year-old right now because he's in that phase where he has fits about nothing, and then you give it to him and he has fits about the other thing, and you're just in his fit. And so I'll just start crying with him or fake it, and he comes over and gives me a kiss, and then we're fine. We move on. But one of the things that you talked about in regards to blocks is how sometimes these energy blocks that are getting in the way of what we actually want to do or be, they don't just show up in one way. It can show up in physical and emotional and in mental. What are examples of what each of those might look like? And then do we approach them differently depending on how it's showing up?
Yeah, great point. So that will require us to just understand, or at least allow this theory that there are 4 planes that we can be operating from: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right? We're able to do life a lot better if you think. So some work requires you to solve a problem or a challenge from the emotional plane. For example, if you set a goal that's meaningful to you, if you only set it from the mental level, it doesn't have energy on it. You heard of those theories that get associated with it. Imagine yourself having it, all that law of attraction, book secret. All it's saying is, if an emotion is attached to a desire, it is way more likely that you will have the regular energy to progress towards it. Pretty simple, actually. I like to make things very simple this way. If you think about a time when you were a child. I remember when I was a child, there was an excursion I wanted to go to. And because my friends were going, so there was a lot of emotion. I want to go, I want to have fun. I'm running pitches, we're going to have so much fun. And my dad said, no, I don't have the money for it. I actually physically could not hear the no. I could not hear it. How did I know that? Because no matter what he said, I kept pursuing it. There was so much emotion on it. It came true. So that's tapping into the emotional plane. You can do this consciously as well, right? Some things in life, they're very physical in nature. We're only solving it at a physical level. And some blocks, you just need to think through them without emotions. That means you need to solve it from the mental level. You see, business in general, if someone's in business is a largely physical and to an extent mental concept. Sure, emotions help, but try and go and deal with your customer if you, depending on the type of business you are, and try and get too emotional in the way you respond. Right? In business, you gotta be focused on the numbers. It requires quantitative thinking, pragmatism, and clarity of mind. But a lot of people operate business from emotional level because they're trying to prove something to somebody, and then boom. I hope that helps. There's some examples, but I could literally go on a 5-hour workshop just on this. There's so much you can do, tap into different planes. In our field, when you're helping people with personal development, just so you know, and you may already be aware of this, we've got to operate. When I'm training people and I'm taking them through a whole experience and journey, I tap into the emotional, mental, spiritual. If you're a college professor, pretty much 99% of the time, I've noticed you're operating from the mental plane.
I just refocused my values, and they're all pretty similar to what they were a couple years ago. But one thing that's really shifted in the last couple of years is I'm in my spiritual era. I have one thing that's been coming up for me this year. My theme of the year has been heart purification. And I really believe that I think there's something missing in our current I don't know, self-development field, spirituality field. It's like everyone's going for these quick fixes, these, oh, manifest your dream life in a year. And they're missing the point, because I think even if they did, there's not enough alignment that really comes from that. I don't know how many people would really be happy with that. I think that what we're missing, that maybe ancient cultures had more of, or certain religions might have more of, is this devotion. And I think that's really what heart purification is. So that's been my focus. And so I'm curious, how do you help people align on that spiritual level? Or what are some of the ways that you connect to that higher consciousness?
For me, this is a case of train. That's why I use the word train so much. I like what you said about devotion. Devotion means what? It's implying longevity. It's implying continuity. It's implying immersion and engagement. We like to use, even though our programs, our courses, they do free people in a very short period of something very, blocking. But we always use the word, you must continue to train your mind. That's a form of devotion, right? Continue to be responsible for your own universe. So without going into a rabbit hole, is that whole theory, right? Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. I use this line a lot. There's a lot of things that could be challenged, but you got to decide what you believe in right now. You can decide that, I heard someone say, oh, trust no bastard. Sure. That's your belief system, right? That's what you've decided to holding to be true right now. My belief system is that all people are magnificent. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant, because I can certainly see evidence to the contrary. But I have to choose. You cannot complain and be grateful at the same time, right? Your brain doesn't know how to hold the two together. So I chose that one. Now, does it mean that I don't encounter people who are not very good? Sure. That's when you exercise boundaries. That's when, I by default trust people. But if you break my trust, you're out. So you got to decide that. So for me, this whole area is about being responsible for your own universe. What does that mean for you? I subscribe to this idea that your entire reality is your creation. Sure, you could challenge me on that and show me evidence to the contrary. No. But I still want to continue to believe it. I have greater inner ability to deal with. Even if I'm walking down the street and someone has a quarrel or violent act, while I was there and observed it, at some level, I'm believing it's my creation. This is the level at which I think, Melissa. I'm not sure everybody else would. For me, if something happens in the room here and the roof is leaking, it's my creation. Something is happening inside of me that is suggesting the leakage. So rather than manifest for the sake of manifesting, so because I can't do it any other way, first thing, man, is have that deep spiritual understanding or work towards it. How is everything my creation? The people that are bringing into my life, the experiences, can you go there? When you go there, you will see more evidence to support that. And when you see more evidence to support that, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now you start influencing your reality. And you test it until you get it right. I'm not sure if that directly answers your question or not, but that is my model of thinking and spirituality. And that's what we are doing with them. We work with people with you're getting the tools, you're getting the techniques, you're getting the new thinking frameworks. But you can't go out there now and say, they did this to me, my husband said this to me. There's a whole level to it. How did you choose to create that?
I am so in line with you. I even have a ChatGPT thread with my worldview built in, and part of its code is that we live in a nonlinear, meta-scripted, auto-executing projection based on symbols, numerology, and coded patterns. So I'm always looking at what's happening as a projection, and it's not something that you can talk to with everyone because a lot of people aren't ready. They're too focused on, how dare you say that? What about this? How can you call this victim? And my only response is, okay, live there. I don't live there. I don't live in that mindset anymore. And for my own life path, it's been really, really helpful to view that, because all I am doing is taking back control in every single area. And yes, it can be argued that things are happening outside of my control, but that doesn't help me as much as it helps me to say, well, what's inside of me that's drawing my attention to this? Even if you only want to look at it that way, it would have happened regardless. But for some reason, it's in my field, it's in my attention, it's in my struggles, it's in my emotional body. Why did I let it in? If it meant nothing to me, if it wasn't already inside of me, then I would have not heard it, just like you didn't hear your dad's no. And I've been watching how careful you are with language, and it's really inspiring, even along the lines of a question I asked you earlier. And you said, you need to understand this concept, or not understand it, just allow it. And I love that. It's like, allow this worldview for a minute and see how your life shifts.
Yes. Yeah. Allow it. Can you allow it? Yeah. Yeah. You're quite right. And this one line that I'm always using it, and whether it's true or not is irrelevant, because what is true? So you got to choose your word. We're saying, we talk about this fact, you can be at cause or you can be at effect, right? We're not saying you that some other people have not done the wrong thing by you. It's not about saying you're the victim. No. You can decide to be at cause. If something went wrong in this interview here, Melissa, I can blame you, I can blame the technology, or I can say I am at cause. Suddenly at that point, it'll remind me, oh, I should have checked this before, I should have contacted your team before, I should have emailed, and that gives me more power. And you can see how powerful this is in business. Or you can be at effect. You can be at effect of your partner, your kids, your parents, your economy, the weather, the president, and it's addictive to be at effect. Now, can it be challenged that sometimes you can be at effect and it truly is not your fault? Of course. So, and can it be challenged that being at cause is not the answer? Yes. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. Which one is likely to get you better results? So that's how we go about things in life, because everything is challengeable.
If you were to advise our listeners to implement one thing, whether it's an action item, a concept we talked about, something that they can ground into their lives right now, really focus on this week, what would you leave them with?
If I had only one thing, I would say do whatever it takes to forgive yourself. Whatever it takes. We've all done bad things, so we all have the good, bad, and ugly. There is no oneness without good, bad, and ugly. Which one do you feed more? And, I had a class in December last year. I've mentioned this so many times. I have to say this here. In the class, we did certain processes that allow you forgiveness. These are spiritual processes, lead to forgiveness of others. So I asked the class, how many of you have not forgiven yourself for something, anything? 80% of the hands went up. And I said, how many of you are not willing to forgive yourself? 50% of those hands stayed up. That's very, very, very concerning. No matter how much personal development you do, no matter how much work you do, if there was one thing I said to anybody listening to this, do whatever it takes. Find new meanings. Resolve within yourselves. Go do some work. Find the spiritual reasons behind it. You must forgive yourself. Otherwise, nothing else will truly work.
Yeah. Holding yourself hostage, guilt and shame. I really think that's the energy of cancer inside your body, whether or not it manifests in actual cancer or not. It's not serving you. It is your own poison. So thank you so much for everything that you've brought to this episode today. For listeners that are interested in working with you and learning more about your work, where's the best place to connect?
We have a company called Neuromasters Academy. So people can just check out the website, neuromastersacademy.com. If they would like a little masterclass, which, just a recording of it, which will give them, if they've enjoyed the topic here, better understanding of the energy cube in general or the significant emotional events, then they can go and DM my Instagram account, which is Raj Malhotra Official, and just DM the word Melissa25, and the team will get that over to them. If they're interested in doing deeper work or learning more about the programs, then there's a lot of information on the website, and certainly book in a call and figure out if any of that is right for them at this stage.
All the links from this episode will be at mindlove.com/405. Your challenge for this week is to forgive yourself for one thing you've been carrying around. Pick something specific that still makes you cringe when you think about it. Something that you did or didn't do that you're still beating yourself up over. Write it down, look at it, and consciously choose to release the energy that you've been using to keep that guilt alive. You're not excusing what happened or pretending it was okay. You're just choosing to stop paying rent on it with your life force energy. That energy belongs to your future, not your past. Also, if whatever this indiscretion is involved another person, you can do what I talked about last episode 404 with Marnie Kinrys. We talked about how we've both reached out to people in our past. I reached out to 2 different people for things that I said in the 6th grade and 9th grade. They didn't even remember those things. And somehow it was freeing for both of us, and it actually ended up rekindling us a little bit. And it doesn't matter what the other person does with that information. I've also apologized to people when I thought I was about 10% in the wrong and they were like 90% in the wrong, and they said, well, I'm glad you finally come around to realize you're in the wrong. And there's nothing I can do about that. But I get to release the energy from within me, and that's all that really matters. So give it a try and let me know how it goes. Also, I am currently expanding Story Love into way more than just a story system. It's going to help people get booked on podcasts, create their own shows, use their stories in all of the ways that fuel their purpose. And because of that, the price is going up significantly. So if you want to get in on the price that this last round just got in on, for the very last chance you're going to have, reach out to me on Instagram and tell me you want to learn to tell your story. This is the very last chance to get in at the founding member price. Do not miss it. This could be the thing that changes everything for you. You can also find all my sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. Or if you want to wake up inspired, sign up for the Morning Mind Love at mindlove.com or text the word morning to 33777. It's just like a daily oracle from your highest self. I have thousands of people that have been getting these for years, and they say it's their favorite thing to read in the morning. So mindlove.com. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.